Hi, everybody. Welcome to Creating Believable Anthros as a panel. I am Tempo, your friendly guest of honor this convention. I am the writer of the Six is Wild series and the Windfall series and the staff writer at Culturally Eft. And joining me,
Hi guys, I'm Joey, also known as Foxbrush Creations, your artist for today and every day, this whole time. I've been here
an artist for all
weekend,
seasons.
every season.
So, I was thinking, so just to get the ball rolling, what do you look for, visually, as believable details in furry art? What are examples people would be aware of that you're like, oh, I really like that. That really makes sense.
Well, so there's so many different weird ways you can go with it. Like, for example, Zootopia. They got the mice are small, all the animals are their proper sizing, which I really thought was an interesting way to do it. And then you have furry style where they're all just human sized. And then there's even worlds where you have the anthro furries, and then there's also normal animals too. So there's that, which is interesting, and how they play with that. Or there's weird stuff like BoJack Horseman. I don't know if y'all have seen that show or not. But they have anthro animals in it, and they have humans in it, and they have no regular animals in it. And there's stuff like birds they'll fly into glass. And when they have kids, if it's a human and an animal, it can either be a human or an animal, but it's never a combination of the two. And then there's worlds where two different things combine, like in D&D, for example, if a human and a dragonborn got together, some people might say it's a dragonborn or a human, or some people will have it be a cross between them. And do some sort of homebrew thing of a half dragonborn and stuff like that. And it's all very fun how it can be just so many different versions. But there are bad ones too. You can do it badly, or you can have mistakes or continuity things that just don't kind of work. One thing that particularly gets me, B-stars. I love B-stars, but their world's a little weird. Mice are small. Elephants are big, and I don't think you see an elephant in the show, but in the manga there's one, and he's big. But then you have the chicken, who's normal for some reason, and Legoshi's pretty tall, but he's also almost the same height as a bear. And then there's the fox, who's not much shorter than him. The fennec is really small though. It's so weird how they kind of pick and choose certain ones where they really stick to the proper size differences. And then you have this chicken who's as tall as Jack, who's a lab. And chickens, I don't know if you've noticed, but chickens are not the same size as dogs. So, but when you're immersed in the story, I don't really notice it that much. It's just more of an afterthought. It's that's a weird choice that the author took, but I kind of love it because I feel there's some sort of intent here that they had with that, because the chicken is important. I do know this. The author is a chicken. They have a chicken head that looks like the chicken that's from their books, so they identify with the chicken. So I thought that was a fun thing. And in case y'all didn't know that. So it might have something to do with that, but I'm not sure. It's not been clarified or anything, so... you have things keeping in mind that they have fur or scales. What kind of maintenance would they need to do? When they're getting regular to their day-to-day lives. In Beastars, they have bathing day. Or they have to get their fur trimmed. It'd be all over. It wouldn't just be their heads. Things like that.
Right.
What about like a bird when it molts? You know, what's that like? Or the deer in that his antlers shed in the show or movie or book. I mean manga, not a movie. There's not a movie yet.
But yeah, like for me, a recent example that had like really believable anthros for me was actually like pretty low key furry. It was She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. I really like how they do like Catra, for example. Like Catra is, you know, like on the sliding scale of furry, like maybe like a third of the way to animal, but like she acts a lot like a cat. So like when she's surprised, her tail fluffs out. When she's like sad, her ears go down. Like when she's, you know, she's always crawling up on things and like scratching herself with her foot and stuff like that. And that really sells the anthro nature of the character because she's doing things that normal humans don't do. And so similarly, Scorpia, like when she's surprised, will just sting people sometimes. Like, you know, she like has big pincers instead of hands, and so she has to like constantly be like trying to manipulate objects with these big dumb oven mitt like hands. And you know, I find that really believable. I also really like the horse Swiftwind because I grew up on a horse ranch, and he
cool.
Not only moves like a horse a lot of the time, and like they get, you know, like yeah, he's pretty toony, but like he does things like he says things that I could envision a horse saying, like "I am so great, let everyone look at me." You know, we're just gonna go and do this. Oh my God, what's happening? Help! Oh my gosh, get it away from me! I don't want anything to do with it. You know, like, and he envisions like all the humans as horses, and you know things like that, like because horses are, in particular, I raised Arabian horses, so they were, you know, like hot-blooded, like, you know, very active horses, and so they were basically 800-pound house cats, and
Right.
so they like flip out about stuff and like are very like flighty, and you know they think they're hot stuff, as opposed to say like a draft horse, which is, you know, bred for like really even temperament, and they're just like a big friendly dog. Like they just want to be your pal. And so like I thought that was really good integration of the animal aspect of the characters, even though the characters aside from Swiftwind aren't super animalistic in physical form. So I thought that was really good. In my own work, I tend to, for the sake of believability, like look at how sensory inputs would be different for that species. So like, you know, dogs would totally be able to tell if you know, much like humans would be able to tell right away, oh hey, he wore that same shirt yesterday, weird. He must not care about how he looks. Dogs would be like, oh, you wore that same cologne yesterday.
You
know,
smell the same.
You smell the same. You know, and like, you know, things like, for example, you know, I wrote a scene where they go to a fruit bat opera, and like the bats in this setting are like, all bats can breed with bats, rats can breed with rats, etc. So like they go to a bat opera in the Western I wrote, and like the bunny who goes doesn't really understand what's supposed to be happening a lot of the time, because a lot of it's based on echolocation, like simulated echolocation props that the audience is like detecting, and oh yeah, there's a 3D object there that I can't see, but it's there because I can hear it. When really that's simulated by like tricks of how they set up the stage and like props that are backstage that they're echoing off of. And, you know, everybody's like, oh wow, there's a ghost, and they're reacting to it like it's there, like the whole audience is like gasps, like, oh wow, a ghost. And the bunny's just like, I don't get it. Because the rabbit's, or like the rabbit's personality is set up in such a way, or the hare's personality is set up in such a way that she doesn't or her neurology is set up so she can't process those auditory signals even though she can hear them into a 3D image. And so she's just like, I don't get it. There's just a bunch of squeaks. Why is that one dressed up like a chili pepper? What's happening? And has completely lost the thread because it was written for bats and is heavily dependent upon you watching it with a bat sensory organ set and brain. And so similarly, when I wrote like a modern story, there in Windfall there are these otters who have like an old family house they inherit, and it's this big sprawling thing, and it has like meeting pools and like hangout pools and like casual pools and formal pools and like oh yeah, the ballroom has like tin plating all the way around it, like a meter high on the walls, so you can flood it so that everybody can float around in this formal meeting space. That's where we have our fancy dress parties. Like, oh, okay, everyone's
See,
in a little boat.
I love that, like, those little technical things, that's what really puts it together. I mean, like, you can have the look, and you can nail the look of an anthro character, no problem. But, like, when you add those, like, little things, okay, well, like, these animals are nocturnal, so they would probably have night jobs,
or work underground.
Or work underground, yeah, like a mole. A mole would probably be like a miner or something, or maybe even like they work in the sewers if they live in a city and there's like no place to mine. Like, what would a mole do when it doesn't have work and they can't work in the daylight? They'd have to work in the dark.
Right.
Things like that.
And like this changes how like characters dress too. Like, I write modern day otters as wearing a lot of fishing vests casually. Like, they like having little weird pockets and things that they can keep little bits and bobs in. And meanwhile, like, bats can't wear belts and can't wear shirts. And so they wear like fancy vests that have lots of like decor on them, but don't have like a ton of pockets because they can't reach the upper pockets very easily. They have to use their feet. And so, like, things like that, like, all of the buttons, all of their pockets on bat outfits have, like, snaps, so you can close them so stuff doesn't fall out depending on if you're upside down or right side up.
I love it.
Bats, it would be absurd to a bat to wear clothes that would interfere with your ability to fly. So, like, they might wear, like, a peasant dress kind of thing, but they'd never wear, like, a huge elaborate dress, like ball gown dress, because it would get in the way of their wings, and they'd be like, well, I can't fly in that, that's absurd. And that would be to us like an outfit you can't walk in. Similarly, like, otter underpants are indistinguishable from swim trunks, like swimsuits of various descriptions. Like, they just don't see a distinction. Like, why would I wear underwear I can't swim in? What if I need to swim? Things
right.
like that. And
I'm going to be in the water. What are you talking about?
Right. And similarly, you'd have things like, I have a story that has like a horse construction worker as one of the characters, and he has like multiple different kinds of horseshoes that he wears depending upon the stage of construction that the building is at. So like early on, he has like heavy duty protective, high impact plastic or metal studded, like horseshoes that snap onto his hooves. But then like later, oh, well, we don't want to screw up the carpeting that we've installed while you're going in and finishing this other thing. So now you have to put on like silicone horseshoes that will allow you to have grip still, but they won't damage surfaces that you walk on.
That's so weird. That's so cool. Like, because that's not something I probably really think about. Horseshoes, they have hooves. What about things with other kind of, like an elephant? Their they're big and they're heavy and they have big flat feet. Well, I bet certain surfaces would be really hard for them, like something really smooth. So maybe if they're like going shopping in a store and it's got a smooth floor, what would they wear? Or something like a bovine animal like a deer that would have a hard time too.
Right. Like I've seen videos of deer trying to walk on ice and they slip all over the place because they don't have a good way to like dig into ice.
Yeah.
And so, they'd probably have to wear like cleats or something. And so if you want to have believable anthros, have your characters not just wear like human clothes that are the right shape for them, but also like what that are adapted to their particular physiology. So like if you're writing your Undertale fanfic and you want Toriel to have, you're like, Toriel's going to be outside in the winter. Well, how is Toriel going to keep her big dangly ears warm when they don't fit under a hat? Like, do you just wrap them up inside a scarf?
She rolls them up into like a bun, like ear buns.
Right? Like, is that why she has...
What about animals that have a lot of fur in the summer? It's like they can't just go out naked. What are they going to wear during the hot weather? Like a husky. What would he wear in the summer?
And so, for some of that, like, I tend to assume that characters, anthro characters would get, like, go to the spa and get groomed, go to the barber shop and they're gonna at least brush you out. And, like, they might even, if they're really, really, out of their element, like a husky in the tropics, you might have to, like, go in and shave down some of your fur. You might have to trim it down or thin it out so that you could do that. Or, like, if it's long, like if you're like an Afghan hound, you might have to get like cornrows for ventilation purposes, like just something to limit the amount of, just, insulation that's going on.
Right.
And yeah, because humans are, like if we take off our clothes, we don't have a lot of insulation left.
No.
And so, but anthros, a lot of anthros would be the reverse. Like, so things like, the little squeezy bottle full of water that has a fan that when you pull the trigger to squeeze it, it spins the fan.
Right.
Those might be really popular.
For certain. Yeah. I can even see, like, not necessarily just for the heat, but things that like to be wet, not necessarily aquatic creatures, but like maybe a duck. He likes it because he likes to be wet every once in a while, and he can't always make it down to the pond, so he uses his little portable fan. Oh, this takes me back. That really old cartoon. Actually, it's not that old. It's older. My gym partner's a monkey. Where it was a school, and it was all animals, and like there was a bull shark, and to be out of the water, he had like a weird filter on his gills, and so he would like have to breathe it in everyone because like they can only breathe in water, and it was almost like he had asthma. But
exactly.
So and like he could be on land,
and it makes even just a weird little concession like that makes your character really distinctively a shark. Like, you'll never forget that character's a shark because they have to have their water inhaler.
Right. I loved that. That was the weird stuff. They had, in the halls, there were tubes, like water tubes for the fish students to travel in. So, like, what about, I've known, there's not a whole lot of aquatic anthros, and sometimes birds are missed too in some worlds. Like, Zootopia doesn't go over birds or any sort of aquatic. The only aquatic reptiles we got was the otter. Or reptiles. Yeah, reptiles are another one. They sunbathe and stuff. Some like it dry, and then there's amphibians who like it wet. Like, so like there's like, are you going to include those animals too in your world, or like do you want all of the animals? You got to think of all the little things that they might want or need to do if you want to do that, or you could just not have them in there. But everyone's going to probably be like, yo, where's the lizard? I want lizards. Where's the snakes? Do snakes have arms? Are you going to give your snake arms and legs? Or are they going to be like a weird cross between that? Are they gonna be
or are they going to have arms but no legs?
If they wear pants, is it pants or a sock.
right? Do you have to do they look like Lowly Worm on Busy Town? Like this hop around in one shoe?
Oh
Um,
yeah, that one.
like do you have like several snakes working together to wear normal clothes?
Like a weird little kid in a trench coat kind of
Yeah,
deal,
but
but
like
like that's how they live.
yeah. Another thing I like to think about in making Anthros believable that's relatively like easy to add to an existing story is like diet. Like what do they actually like to eat? Because
Yes.
like,
Do
go
they
ahead.
eat meat? Do they eat from each other? Is it going to be kind of like B stars where like there's a black market, but like in general people don't eat other animals like legally? Like do you get your protein if you're a predator, do you get your proteins from eggs? What's the relationship's going to be like from a predator and a prey animal? Or maybe like I said before, maybe the anthros have real regular animals in their world. And it's weird because, like, what if a dog has a pet dog, but it's a normal dog, and they're an anthro dog? How does that work?
Right. Well, and they might think it's weird that a human would have a pet monkey.
Right?
Something like that. Like, oh, it's a weird kind of close relation of yours. No, it's not. What do you mean? Well, monkeys can't even grow beards. What are you talking about? Well,
They don't talk.
yeah, they don't talk. What are you talking
It's a
about? And
monkey.
and yet, like, we would find it uncomfortable if somebody was like, here, have a monkey burger that we made, like, as opposed to like a hamburger made, like from cows.
What would the anthro version of that be? Would it be a human burger? Are the humans the
Well,
pet?
no, I
I'm
think
just
like I think
kidding.
like the anthro version of that would still be an animal. Like it'd still be like a feral, right? Like it wouldn't be like an
Maybe
intelligent.
something like panda? Like, would there still be endangered species? How would they go through that? What kind of would there be laws set? Like, if you're an endangered species, are you required to procreate with only others of your species? Would they set laws like that? Would they try to save the bloodline? Like, or maybe they wouldn't care. Maybe it's like, oh well, the dodos are gone. Dinosaurs. Oh,
They couldn't get it. Yeah, they couldn't get it figured out, or they didn't like each other, and so they
yeah.
they they hung out with everyone else and they died off. But oh
They
well,
killed each other in the wars, the Dino
right?
Wars.
But like food, I mean, like even just on a like more day-to-day basis, like you know, you go to a fair and like there's a dog selling popsicles and the popsicles are all like chicken broth and beef broth and like meat flavors, like oh wow, because a dog would totally love that. Like you could totally give
Right?
like a dog an ice cube of chicken broth and they'd go nuts for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so otters, meanwhile, like I like to assume that otters are eating like, those weird puffed crayfish snacks and like, like they're the kind of people who get sardines on a pizza and
Hey,
like
I like sardine.
maybe you're secretly an otter.
Maybe I am.
Like, like do you like sushi?
I enjoy sushi,
So
yes.
you're an otter? I'm sorry, we just found this out live. But yeah, but in all seriousness, like the range of things that humans like to eat is pretty broad. And so if you assign things from that list to specific animals, so like for example, those little sprouts that you get in like, like on a burger as a side,
Mm-hmm.
maybe herbivores are all about those. Like maybe there's like some hip little bar or, uh, cafe where, that's what they serve. They have like 15 kinds of sprouts. And you can go in and you get bean sprouts or wheat sprouts or whatever, just all kinds of things. And it's you go to the turnover a new leaf cafe and you all the herbivores are hanging out there, or like
It's the hot place for the herbivores.
yeah, and so like what do they like dietarily? Like that's usually a pretty easy one to put in there. Like what would they want on a pizza, you know and then meanwhile like the squirrels are like drinking drinks with pine nuts in them or something, and then like from there from clothing to how characters eat to what kind of music might they listen to. Like I always envision foxes as being really big into pop music because it's like fast and it's sexy and like things are happening and oh what I'm doing this and now this
Could be into
little
jazz.
oh
Sloths,
yeah it could
sloths
be
probably.
see it slow jazz, right?
Cats maybe sometimes when they're like
Right.
in a napping mood.
I think dogs listen to a lot of country music because they're really good at missing people. Like they maybe howling once in a while.
Oh yeah, that's like the perfect music for howling at. Honestly.
Meanwhile, like that really like the R&B music that's all about like I'm a cool guy, listen to me, I'm going to the club. I think that's like songbirds. I think songbirds are all about like check it out. I'm a cool guy. Everyone wants to get with me because I'm a cool guy.
Man.
Don't mess with me. I'm the coolest guy. And peacocks are all would be all about check it out. Everyone wants to be like me because I'm a cool dude.
Peacocks are at the rave and they like put glow sticks all over themselves.
Right? Yeah, stuff like that.
I like to think about too, not just that, but like the science of things. Like maybe they were regular animals and they adapted and what's the word?
Evolved to be.
Evolved, yeah, evolution. What's the evolution like? Is it going to be different for certain animals? Like maybe predators evolved into being plant eaters. Maybe that's how you want to do it.
Right, like how in Kung Fu Panda no one eats meat. They just eat dumplings.
They just eat food. They have eggs. I think I've seen eggs.
Yeah.
They have dumplings.
Yeah, but they never eat like a steak. Like they never
I've never seen a steak, no.
They never eat like meat. It's always like
ramen.
Do you want like some ramen? Do you want like a steamed bun kind of thing?
I kind of want a steamed bun.
Right.
Now. I could go for that. I'm hungry.
Right, clearly, like your otter Sona needs to be holding a steamed bun with both little hands and just like floating along.
Aww, I used to really like otters too. I still do. They're so cute. But,
so that's like what they would listen to. We like think too about like their approach to problem solving. So like a squirrel will approach most problems differently than a rhinoceros.
Yes.
Like a rhinoceros might have the attitude of I don't need to worry about a lot of these problems because they'll go away on their own, and if they don't, I'll step on them. And like a squirrel, meanwhile, might be like, holy cow, we need to get on that one right now. Let me go over there. I have 15 plans over here. We're going to do all 15 of them at once, and one of them will work. And like
there's a ban. There's a law out there that squirrels cannot consume caffeine in this world.
Right.
I'm making that right now.
Right. Well, like, and there might be, regulations about what kinds of drugs are out there and stuff, so that you can't like go out and sell a bunch of insecure bucks antler ointment to make their antlers bigger, but it doesn't do anything. Like
antler ointment.
That kind of stuff.
You rub it on. Are you losing your fur? We'll call now and we'll get you'll have thicker, smoother fur, shinier fur than you've ever, like you'll feel like you're 20 again in dog years.
Exactly. And like another thing that I like to think about in terms of like anthropopulations is how do they tell each other apart? So like, if you see a bunch of foxes, like if you get 100 foxes together, what kinds of variations do you see? Like, and that can be something that you look at real life pictures of and say, okay, well, there's this lineage of foxes that don't have the white tip on their tail or something. There's this, lineage of foxes that don't have this, and you can, that don't have that little mustache thing on their markings or whatever it is. And, these ones have more muted colors and these ones have really bright colors.
What about like domestic animals? That made me think of domestic animals because they're working on a domestic form of foxes. Like if humans don't exist in this world, why would any kind of domestic animal exist? Like a domestic cat or a dog. Like, why would those exist? And like, I keep talking about Beastars. Beastars, answer for that was that dogs were bred and made to be smarter, analytical, and friendlier forms of predators. I can't remember the exact reason why they wanted them, but like they're meant to be really smart. They're supposed to be like really smart and really friendly, and they came from wolves, and so they were purposely scientifically like bred, like it was a scientific project. Like, what would you do that for other animals? Like, is it just the dogs? Why would domesticated cats exist? Why would there be domesticated forms of horses or cattle? You know.
And some of those are close enough to their wildlife
Right.
versions that you can kind of just fudge it. And so, like, you know, a wild, desert small cat is pretty similar to most
It
modern house
is.
cats, but you couldn't have, like, Persian cats because
No.
Persian cats can't survive in the wild. You can't really have,
Like,
like,
what about,
pugs.
yeah, like breeds like pugs. Like, they were bred because people wanted cute flat faces. They cannot breathe very well.
Right. And
So,
so, right, so like things like that, like so you could totally like I have approached that differently in different settings. So like in my primary setting that has like Sixes Wild Windfall, things like that in it, um, the dogs are like basically like specific isolated pockets of wolf population or
mhm.
coyote population or whatever who basically diverged strongly in one direction or another, and they're genetically they're still Canis lupus, but like they look different enough that like they're distinct as an entity, and people expect different things of a golden retriever than a German shepherd.
Right.
But like things like cows, like if I had anthro cows in a setting, I would just say obviously they're aurochs, but we're calling them cows because it's hard to spell auroch. And you know, um, but to in another setting I had, it was the only anthros in the setting were anthro canines, and humans and canines like co-evolved, and they selected over time more and more anthro traits in canines, and until they're basically humanoids. And like there are feral version, like there are non-human cooperating ones. Like there are anthro dogs who don't work with the humans and live in their own society out in the wild as far as humans see it, and they are the wolves. But then the dogs are almost exactly the same thing, but wear hats and go to tea shops and things like. And so it's all about what you want in your setting. Like if you are looking for a sci-fi setting where you have a bunch of different cool animal uplift ideas, you want talking dolphins who walk around in mechanical armor, sure, go for that. But like if I find that a lot of the time, as long as you have, even just like Beastars doesn't spend a ton of time explaining why there are so many, bipedal animal species.
Mhm.
It's just kind of part of the setting. And so you also don't have to worry about it a ton if it's not relevant to your particular story. Like, Rock Dog doesn't worry about it at all.
They're just animals,
They're
and
just
they want
animals.
to rock.
Well, yeah, and they like rock music, so like that's the point. But like even in that one, we talked about yesterday super briefly, like the cat wears fingernail polish to protect his little claws from the guitar strings. Like the dog is really shameless and will like totally eat discarded pizza.
So is that what they said in the? Because I haven't seen Rock Dog yet, and I need to. Is that what they said? Why he wears nail polish, or was that your conclusion?
That
Because
was
I
my
couldn't
conclusion,
remember.
but
Okay,
he wears it because he's Eddie Izzard.
he wants to.
Eddie Izzard is a crossdresser in real life, and
Mhm.
so they put nail polish on the cat in the movie that he
Mhm.
voices. But like,
he probably cross-dresses in his free time, which is fine.
right?
Right?
And so, yeah, but that was the conclusion, was like, oh, okay, yeah, like he is also a guitarist, so that must be why. And like, um,
Can't he just have
similarly,
nail polish? I'm just
right,
kidding.
right. Well, and similarly, when you look at a group of, like I said, when you look at like a group of animals of a particular species, how do they differ from one another? Because otherwise you end up in situations where the first character you design of that species is how everyone looks, except that they have like a tuft of fur, or they're a slightly different color, or whatever, and they're all exactly the same.
This one wears a hat.
Right. Like DuckTales.
And
Like,
this one has a scarf.
right?
And not a hat.
DuckTales, the ducks in DuckTales pretty much only look like a few ways.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are ones who look like Donald. There are ones, then there are the kid ones who all kind of look the same.
The children.
Right.
Ducks.
And then, like, you have a
Grandpa.
few variations. But, like, everybody else has to be a different kind of bird so that you can have, other characters on screen who are visually distinct. Like Allison. You have to have her be she has to be an owl so that we can tell her apart from all these ducks. And so,
right.
Think about how your characters are different from one another. Like, do you ever, okay, so have you seen, like, Jak and Daxter?
It sounds familiar?
The one with the little orange weasel guy? Well, anyway, in that one, the first otter weasel we see is this little, otter-looking guy, but he's the color of Cheetos. And,
I love it.
Right? And but like, the thing is, he is he is therefore the template for everyone else who is an Ottsel. Like, everyone else in the entire series who shows up later, who's that same species.
Same face syndrome kind of things as people. Same face syndrome, as they call it. Like, I see it a lot when people try to mimic a show's art style, especially if it's got like anther characters. They like take that one anther that their character is of, and then they literally just put their colors on it.
Yeah, it's like a recolor, or like they change some other factor to make it so that they are.
He's got more hair.
Right. He has a Simba fluff. He has whatever, he has an eye patch. And so
he's got bangs.
Right, yeah. And it's because they want to have they want to have like this character. You have it be obvious that this is the same species as this other character, but they have like already set in stone that this is how characters look from this species, and then they're just like, oh yeah, we're done. That's all we're doing. And so, yeah, this is what Ottsels look like.
Where are you putting it?
I'm putting it in your Discord.
Okay.
But yeah, like, and so, but the problem is that all of the other ones look like him. Like, once you see him, and so it's not like there are blue ones and green ones and whatever. They all have to be orange now because the first one was orange. When really, like, if you'd planned a little better in advance, you could say, like, like, some foxes are white, some foxes are gray, some foxes are red, some foxes are whatever.
There are different kinds of foxes.
Yeah.
This one's a fennec fox. This one's a bat-eared fox.
And then
this one's a gray fox.
So, like, and so another thing that I like to think about is, like, what technology these species use. So, like, I was thinking that, like, a horse having, like, little teeny hooves on the end of their fingers would have to have like, to use a touchpad phone or a touch surface phone, you'd have to have like a little like doodad on your finger that it's like a little silicone
or
thing.
a stylus.
Or a stylus, right? Because like
Mhm.
you just have a stylus snapped into the case of your phone and you pull it off to do stuff.
What if they
with.
don't even have fingers? What if they have like hoof hands?
Then I don't know if they'd
Like-
even be bipedal, would they? Like
They
you don't
can't
have
be.
hands.
It'd be like. It'd be weird, but
right?
like kind of like how do they? It'd be odd because like when you look at paws, they're not too different from hands. They don't go too crazy with that when it comes to anthro characters. But like you gotta really think about, well, is this deer gonna have like person hands? How did he get person hands? Is this an evolution thing? Or is it gonna be like maybe his hooves are just more flexible and weird?
Right. So like
Or
yeah, like
maybe
how
they
do
wear
you...
something. Maybe they wear robotic attachments and we're going like fancy steampunk future-y whatever.
Or is it like BoJack where you just give everyone human hands?
Yeah, they're very human and like everything is human. It's like a human with an animal skin over them is what it makes me think.
Yeah, like it's basically
they don't even
like,
have tails.
right? Yeah, I personally I find it kind of annoying when like the extent of an anthro character is just something that you could drop, like you unlocked a new skin for your character in a video game and you have applied it and it's exactly the same model as the human one, but now it has a horse head and it's a different color.
And when you say horse head, I just think of those weird rubber masks.
Well, you know,
threw
yeah,
on a rubber horse mask and you painted your
right? And so what is it called? Zipperback. When you look like an anthro but you don't like change anything else.
Like what's that movie? That rock. It's like based on. It's old. It kind of makes me almost think of like the Disney style when they like do Goofy and stuff, but like they're anthro animals, but they don't even really look like anthro animals. They're mostly mice. There's like it's like a band. There's this one girl who wants to get with the main guy, and he's just terrible the entire time.
Are they? And they're mice?
I think they're supposed to be mice, but like the whole extent.
That Rock and what is it? Rock and
something Rock and Rule maybe? Yeah, something like that. But like the extent of their anthroness is that they have what I call like the Whoville mouth from like the they look
from
like
Dr. Seuss.
They look like Dr. Seuss characters. They don't really look like animals.
So that's like one.
They like
one
it's like a person
over.
with it's a person with a Dr. Seuss mouth with ears and a tail, and that's like the extent.
It's like
of it.
one step over, one notch
like,
over on the anthro scale, kind of like cat girls.
Yeah, it's like, are you sure that these are animals? They look like they're getting there, but not. They look like they were transforming, and they like kind of gave up during the first half.
Right, and so like I tend to like think about what kinds of technologies these characters would use. So like even just stuff like chairs, like a chair in a horse's house would be radically different than a chair in an otter's house, because a horsetail, you can kind of sit on it. It doesn't really matter. You could have a normal couch, but like an otter couch... Right, like an otter couch would either not have a back at all, and you just lay on it, you just sprawl on it, or has a big track that your tails can all fit in, or things like that.
Something even more awkward, like a Komodo dragon or something, with like those big... thick, scaly tails, you don't bend those. They can like sway, but they don't like really curve very hard. And like, how would you get in your chair when it's that long? Like, they probably have to like get like pretty far in front of it and like back up into it a little bit to get into their chair. If it has like
snaps
a hole
together around their tail.
Yeah, so they can have a back.
Right.
Like all the accommodations that would be required for like a place, like even like a restaurant, like if you open a restaurant that's like, oh, all species are welcome, it's like you're gonna have so many things for so many different animals, and like maybe you could focus on, okay, well maybe this area is known to have like these kinds of animals, so maybe their focus will be on those instead
Right.
of like trying to accommodate for every single animal out there.
Well, we'll just 3D print you a chair when you come in.
Yeah, there you go. You have
Like
to bring your own chair.
and like the more sci-fi the setting gets, the wilder your solutions can be. Like,
BROC.
right? Like the in there's a sci-fi setting I'm working on that has like anthrophenix, and the fennec planet is a desert, and so they're like everything that they make is like based around like glass, because you made a lot of glass out of sand, or like compressed sand concrete blocks. That's what their civilization is made out of. And like, the Fenix are all about like they have really fast ships that can pick up signals from really far away, because that's really important as a Fennec. But like, they aren't, they're kind of small. Like they don't want to have big dumb ships. They think that's clumsy and inefficient.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they're really good at like manipulating light, because light is and like, so they've really advanced like solar power and whatever on their world, and like they have really good laser beams because they're really good at manipulating light. And so things like that, what kinds of technologies would a species use? And that's radically different from, say, like space dolphins, who would like have ships filled with water and like tubes to travel around into different parts of it and things like that.
Like a flying fishbowl in space.
Right. Well, or even stuff like, how would anthro birds have their spaceships? Would it, like, okay, so Star Fox.
Mm-hmm.
In Star Fox, everybody sits in a normal cockpit, but like maybe foxes sit in cockpits like that, and birds are used to laying down so that their wings are stretched out into the wings of the spacecraft.
Oh, yeah, because it's like, I bet that'd be really weird sitting up for a bird when you're flying.
Right? They'd be like, that's bizarre. I can't even look down properly. Stuff like that. Like, make it...
Maybe their cockpit would be, like, the window wouldn't just be the front, but it would be, like, front and curved, like, underneath of them, too, so they can see underneath of them, because that's where they like to look.
Yeah.
That's where they like to see things. They like to fly higher than everybody else. But it'd be weird in space, because it's space.
Right.
Space
and so, like,
is
maybe
different.
maybe like, if Fox McCloud were flying a ship made for Falco, he'd have to lay down like that, and it would be really uncomfortable and weird.
I love that, like, if they crash land somewhere and his ship's the only ship that's working, and, like, Falco broke his arm, so he can't fly. So you have to fly my ship, Fox.
Right.
I really don't want to, Falco.
Right.
I don't know how he talks.
And so or even stuff like when I was running a tabletop RPG where everyone was a werewolf. And it was set in the modern day. It was a World of Darkness, Werewolf the Apocalypse game, and it was, I had to have like the character's like main contact had a really big 1980s car that like was like a station wagon, so that you could fit werewolves in it.
Ooh.
Because, he's like, yeah, it's kind of a pain to park it, but you need a car this big, because I'm the only person in town who needs a car this big, because I have to put werewolves in the car. And sometimes we don't have time for you to transform back before you get in. And if you want to transform in the car, if you transformed inside, a Honda Civic, you'd be stuck. Like, you wouldn't be able to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you could probably like really hurt yourself by accident.
Right. And so like even just stuff
there
like
are horror stories of werewolves transforming in tiny cars, and it's not good. You don't want it.
Right? Like, oh, he was wearing a Geo Metro, like a cartoon character wearing a barrel. Like, he wore it like he was walking around in it like it was Mickey Mouse's shorts. It was awkward. And like that kind of stuff, even in a setting that's mostly not furry, would be really interesting. Like, so you're a werewolf and, you're like cooking breakfast for your friends and you have to like wear a hairnet, over like your entire head so that you don't get fur in their pancakes.
Right, how would they cook? Oh no.
You
Like
have
a
to wear
whole net. Oh,
like a beekeeper hat.
right.
And so you have
They'd
to wear
probably have
that.
to brush themselves out like vigorously every day. Like, what if a very fluffy cat was a chef in a restaurant and everyone's complaining that they get cat hair in their food all the time?
Right? And so you'd have to wear gloves, and you'd have to wear like something to catch the fur, and then you'd probably have to have a fan blowing it away from the food.
You probably have to wear like compressed clothes, like long sleeve shirts and pants and gloves. Yeah, like just cover. Oh, you get so hot. That poor cat.
Right? And so that's the sort of stuff that I like to think about when I'm like trying to make Anthros more believable, because people don't just give up when they're confronted with a situation that doesn't work for them.
No.
Like, if you had like I had a neighbor who was deaf, and he loved cell phones. He loved that everyone had cell phones. He loved that he had a cell phone, because it was like life-changing for him that he could just be like, "Hey, pay attention. Hey, wave, like wave to get your attention." And then he'd like hold up his phone and be like, "Hey man, I locked myself out," or whatever it is of the apartment. "Oh, hey, yeah, do you know where this is? Have you seen this thing? Have you done whatever?" And it was just enter it on your phone and you can show it to someone. And, I would talk to this guy occasionally, and he was just like, he just absolutely could not. He'd had a cell phone for 5 or 6 years at least at that point, and was just still like blown away that, before that he had like a little flip phone, but by that point he had gotten a smartphone and was just like, "Oh my god, this is the best. I can text anybody anything. I can communicate, like I can make it read it to you out loud."
Oh yeah, that one's a good. Yeah.
Things like that. Like, if you can't do stuff like that, if you can't do something, like if a person can't do something the normal way, they will try to find alternate ways of doing it. And like, as a species, you'd have a whole bunch of people sharing notes on how they do stuff. So, maybe, as a mouse, you're like, "Well, I bought this big car and I can't reach the pedals. What do I do?" "Oh yeah, obviously you buy these like, pedal extenders, and then you can do it." Well, then suddenly my friend who's, a giraffe wants to drive the car, they have to take out the pedal extenders.
Maybe there's special shoes they wear instead. Like,
and you just get out your really tall mouse.
They're almost like stilt shoes. Yeah, and you get out your really tall mouse. For a mouse, you're tall. It makes me think of I'm fond of this one. I grew up with this movie, Chicken Little, the Disney one, with the really ugly characters.
the one that has a theme song by Bare Naked Ladies.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like the fish character who's in it. And he wears, it makes me think of like an astronaut helmet, but it's basically a fishbowl on his head and it's filled with water. And that's how they do it. And like the top of it's open, so like he can put like his fish food in it on the top. And then the cars that they have for fish are like fish bowls on wheels. And they have stuff like that to accommodate the fish. And then like there's Chicken Little's house. Like, Chicken Little is tiny compared to his dad because he's a baby chicken. They're small. So there's like a tiny door at the front of the house for him. And his bed is huge for him. And I think if I'm remembering it right, their house kind of looks like a barn. Like the design of it. I can't quite remember. I think it looked like a barn or like a chicken coop kind of look. And then there's like the dog with his son and they're playing fetch with each other. at one point in the movie.
Yeah, like in
Stuff
Bluey, since everybody's a dog, like toddlers are feral dogs, like are four-legged, growly,
That's
bitey
so cute.
dogs. And then when you
So they're like puppies, basically.
right are like puppies, and then when you're like 3 or 4 years old, you start walking upright and talking more and stuff like that. But up until that point, you just are running around like a puppy.
That's so cute. I love that. That's so fun. That's such a fun way to do that. That makes sense.
And then and then there are ways let's close this off with like the oddball stuff. So like if your characters aren't even animals but they look like animals, you can get away with even wilder stuff, like in Winnie the Pooh. So like in Winnie the Pooh, they look like animals, but they're actually just stuffed animals. Like
I think rabbit's
animals.
a real animal and owl's a real animal.
Right, but Pooh and Eeyore and they are not like
they are not.
Even Piglet doesn't weigh as much as he should. Like Piglet's always getting like, oh no, he's accidentally attached to a balloon and he's floating away. Like, and Pooh, like his stuffing always flies out and stuff, and like Eeyore clearly has no bones.
Yes.
Like Eeyore is constantly being like squished by things. Yeah,
Poor
and
Eeyore.
like why not, and why not just roll with that? Because what that says to the viewer, or at least to me anyway, when I watch like Winnie the Pooh, is like these characters are talking stuffed animals. Don't worry about how they evolved. This isn't that kind of setting. Don't worry about how they came to be. Don't worry about whatever, like what they eat. They eat honey, obviously.
He eats, rabbit likes carrots.
Right?
That's
like
all I know.
Right? They eat carrots and vegetables of various sorts, but like it's because it's a kid's game. And in a kid's game, you don't have a ton of backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if your characters are spirits or childhood
like all the theories around Winnie the Pooh, maybe they're actually like forest spirits or the souls of gone children taking over stuffed animals, or they're all a dream, or they're his imaginary friends. Of course, the new live-action movie took it differently, which was interesting. If you haven't seen it.
I think the one where they're the souls of dead children, I think you're thinking of Five Nights at Freddy's, which is slightly different, but I see how you got them confused.
Oh, there's so many weird ones. That's not.
But yeah, like
that's probably one. I guarantee you that's somewhere.
Right. Or like even just because compare that to like Wallace and Gromit. Have you seen that?
I have seen the movie and I've watched some of the clips. And by movie, I mean the Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which is one of my favorites to watch Halloween movies. If you haven't seen it, it is a fun watch. Go watch it. It's claymation. It's well done. Do it.
And in that one, they don't explain a ton about how dogs work in the society.
Right. It kind of reminds me of, like, Family Guy. Here's this dog.
He can talk.
He talks and stuff, and he interacts with humans and has relationships with humans, but he's also a dog.
Right.
And everyone knows he's a dog, and we're just accepting that he's a human.
Right. And so in Wallace and Gromit has the additional burden of Gromit can't talk.
Right.
And so, like, Gromit, has to convey everything through facial expression, but is much smarter than Wallace.
Has there ever been another dog in that show?
Yeah.
Or movie?
Yeah. He has a love interest dog who's a poodle.
I remember her.
And then he has, like, an enemy dog.
Isn't she like him?
Yeah.
Like she walks and stuff, and she can't talk, but like, okay.
Yeah, all the dogs in this setting are bipedal and intelligent. And all the penguins are bipedal and malevolent.
Right.
Hi folks. Hey. We're probably going to have to call this here because we need to get to the next panel. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Also, I love the picture that you did for this, Joey.
Let me zoom out and show it. Yeah, I know.
It looks amazing.
I'm probably going
classy.
to finish this later.
Please
Yes.
do. I would like to see the results of this.
Yes.
Okay. We'll catch
like
you all
it,
in
Tempo?
just a minute. We'll be switching to a talk with Ivik and Scratch and Perseverance.
Continuing our theme of an extra special helping of South African furries in our Nebraska convention.
Yep.
For sure.
All right.
All right, we'll be back in just a sec.
Silver Gatoman, he bought me a coffee. Silver Gatoman, here is the song for thee. He likes to video all the panels at the cons. You should go and watch them whether they are short or long. Silver Gatoman, you video that's not a jibe. All of you go to his YouTube channel and like and subscribe.